Hi, I'm Pamela, and welcome to Greenstick Cottage, where I read and listen to books every chance I get, whenever the cats will allow me to. And I did have a cat lingering around, sniffing at my stacks of books, so I banished her. So we'll see how long that lasts. I have finished a book. And I don't have it because I turned it back into the library, but it is Promise of Blood, and hopefully I'll get an image up here. And I absolutely loved it. It is the first book in the Powder Mage trilogy by Brian McClellan. And it has to do with a magical world where there is sorcery and various subsets of people who have differing types and hierarchies of power in the magical sorcery world. And one of the features is gunpowder. There are powder mages, which are, they use gunpowder. So it's called a flintlock fantasy. Let me say that right away. And that's the subgenre of the fantasy genre. And so there are firearms involved, and a unique relationship with gunpowder by these powder mages, and they are able to do kind of definitely magical things with lead balls or bullets, and with their firearms, and they don't. I won't give too much away, but because they don't always have to use firearms. But anyway, it's the skills they have are pretty amazing, and it is a book full of action and adventure and all kinds of there's gods, and so there's warring factions between countries, and in the main country there's a coup, a military coup, and so there's all kinds of intrigue and mysteries going on as well. So it was very entertaining. I'm looking forward to reading the second one in the trilogy, called The Crimson Campaign, and the third one is called The Autumn Republic, and my library has both of those. So I'm looking forward to that, but I'm reading a book right now that I want to finish first before I move on in the Powder Mage trilogy. And there are also a bunch of novellas, which I was able to find on Kindle and Audible. So I'm trying to decide whether to try to incorporate those in the order that Goodreads has the novellas in the midst of the novels. I'm not sure if I should do that or if I should finish the whole trilogy and then read and or listen to the novellas. I'm kind of leaning towards doing the trilogy, reading the rest of the trilogy first, and then if I'm still excited, then I'm going to have to purchase the Kindle and Audible novellas, and so that might be a better way to do it, and read the freebies first from the library and then move on to the ones I have to purchase. So that's thumbs up for the Powder Mage trilogy by Promise of Blood. I haven't read the other two yet, so I'll definitely give thumbs up for Promise of Blood by Brian McClellan. And so that's the book I have most recently finished. And I have started two books that I pretty quickly DNF'd. And I'm not going to go into great detail about why, but one was a severe disappointment for me. And that is The Poison Jungle. And this is number 13, I believe, in the Wings of Fire series by Twee Sutherland. And yes, it's book 13. And I have read all of the previous 12 books, as well as the two in the Legends kind of adjacent series. So I've read 14 of this family of books, and I had to stop in 13. And so I'm done with this book. I'm done with the series. I'm done with the author. Big disappointment that there were a couple of the propaganda is front and center in this book, and that's all I'm going to call it. I was going to try to code speak about it, but I'm not going to bother with that. I'm going to keep it brief. And the poison jungle, and I think that's what I'm going to name this video, is that the shark got jumped in the poison jungle. And because this series jumped the shark for me, I'm done. And there were a couple of mentions of this type of propaganda, little tiny speed bumps in a couple of the previous books, and I was able to, because it was just one mention in each of the books, I was able to move on from there and still enjoy the books. This one is highly featured in chapter 6, and that was the end for me. So, I found it especially sad that these books are in the children's section of the library. I would not recommend these books for children at all. I wouldn't even recommend them to anybody anymore. And I've been singing their praises for, probably a year or two since I first started reading them. So I have to retract all that and say, no thank you, all done. And I wouldn't, don't do what I did and get all attached and then be disappointed when you get to book 13. Okay, so that's enough for that one. And I'm also disappointed because Sutherland is part of the team that also wrote, I think it's called the Warriors series, where this is anthropomorphized dragons, and I think the other series is anthropomorphized cats. So I was looking forward to reading that after I finish the Wings of Fire series, but I won't be doing that now for fear that I'll run into the same brick wall. So that's that story. And the other the other start and almost immediate DNF, the only reason why it wasn't quicker is because I was stuck at a medical appointment and waiting for my ride home. And I just kept reading because I hadn't brought any backups with me. And so this taught me an important lesson. Always, always, always put my Kindle in my backpack when I leave the house. That way, if I take any other book, if it's disappointing, I can always switch, because I have thousands of books in here, and I have, a couple of them that I want to get started on really soon. So that would give me a little head start. And I'll explain why I didn't take the book I really wanted to read with me when I get to that book. But, so the book I took with me is this one that I talked about in my previous video called Undoing Drugs. And this was a duplicate book that my sister received. She received 2 copies of this book at a conference she attended. And so she gave me the extra one, and I said, sure, I'd like to read it, because it talks about scientific research, which I'm always interested in. However, it's also propaganda and political. It's very political. And I was in the introduction when I realized I was not going to finish this book. But I went ahead and read on. I think I might have, because I was just sitting there waiting for my ride, and nothing better to do. So I just kept, I don't know if I made it to chapter 2 or not, but yeah, it didn't get any better. And so it's Undoing Drugs, How Harm Reduction is Changing the Future of Drugs and Addiction by Maya Zalowitz. I do not share her philosophy. I had no idea what harm reduction means. I had no idea until I started reading the introduction, and she does explain that philosophy. A lot of people would call that enabling drug addiction and crime. And, so I'm not, first of all, it wasn't a subject matter that I'm real interested in because I am not a drug addict. I don't know any drug addicts. So it's, I don't have a real drive to learn about this for personal reasons, as others might be. It might be very helpful to somebody who wants to get involved in that kind of work or something like that, especially, if you're a mental health care professional, as this conference was about. So, but I am not young, and so I want to use my reading time for what I really, really enjoy or benefit from, and I did not think that was going to happen here. And I also felt like it was hypocritical because the political stance she takes also includes harm to innocent life. I am assuming because of how far left it is. So, yeah. And so nope. So that's a DNF. And I do appreciate my sister thinking of me and giving me the book, but she'll understand why. If she started reading it, she may she may feel the same way about it. I don't know. Well, I'll have to ask her when I talk to her. And so those are the two DNFs. And then I am currently reading, The Other Start. That's what I should talk about. The Other Start is this book called The Wager. Now, I've talked about this one before, and I got it from the library. And however, it became due before I was able to finish Promise of Blood. So I had to turn it. So I turned it back into the library, and then I was blessed by one of my friends in my handcrafters group, who this is her copy. This is her hardcover copy that she lent me, and so I have started reading it. I have made it to, I believe, chapter 2 or 3. Yeah, chapter 2, and I'm already hooked. It's very good. It is a nonfiction book about the Wager, which is a ship, HMS Wager. In 1740, it set out from England. And so it covers all of these adventures, a tale of shipwreck, mutiny, and murder. So it's already kind of exciting because they're getting ready for this voyage. This is taking place at the beginning of a war with Spain, with the Spanish Empire, the British Empire versus the Spanish Empire. And I've already, just in the beginnings of the book, I've already learned about things that happen to ships and how ships are so vulnerable, and how they have to be repaired after every voyage. They get worms in the wood, they get fungi, and I had no idea it was so, because it took over, I think, at least a year, if not more than a year, to get all these ships. There were, I can't remember how many are in this, what do you call it when it's a bunch of ships? Anyway, but this group of ships that are setting out in 1740, it took a long time to get them all outfitted. And in order to get them all manned, they had to conscript, they called them press gangs, that would go and get anybody who had any experience with on ships at all, even just fishermen, just plain old fishermen or whatever, and they would press them into service. So basically conscription. And so they weren't all volunteers, many of them, and many of them escaped before the taking off of the ships, the launching of the ships. So it's already exciting just because of that, and you're getting to know a few of the characters and their backgrounds and why they are on this mission, because it's basically a mission, war-like type assignments. So anyway, I'm excited to read the rest of it. But I did not take this with me to my doctor's appointment today because it is my friend's copy. I don't even read it here at home without taking the book cover off to keep it safe from the cats and, putting it in an inaccessible place. But so I take the book cover off to make sure I don't accidentally damage it or anything as well. But inside you have these great maps showing the voyage, and those are on the end plates in the back and the front, and so they go around the horn, and so it's really exciting. But that's why I did not take that and read that. So I need to make sure I take my Kindle, because I always have books in there I want to read, and so that'll be my backup from now on. And so I am loving The Wager. So that hopefully I will continue to love it until the end, but I will keep you updated. And so those are all my starts. 2 of them were DNFs, and one's a big keeper, The Wager. Now, my other current reads, things I'm currently reading, or in this case listening, is Evelina. And let's see if I can get that close enough to even show. By Frances Burney. And I have, gosh, that is not showing up well at all. I think I have, almost 8 hours left on this. So I only pick this up like every once in a while and listen to a chapter. And it's an epistolary novel, and it was written in the late 1700s. And it reads almost kind of contemporary. It's kind of surprising to me that way. And but I'm really enjoying it. I like Evelina. I'm always thinking, I'm always kind of biting my fingernails, like, I hope this or that doesn't happen, because she's kind of in a precarious position away from home. And anyway, it's a good book. I'm enjoying it, but I'm not listening to it every day, so it's going to take me a while to finish it. And another audiobook I'm listening to is The Narrows by Michael Connolly, which is in the Bosch world. It includes Harry Bosch. Sadly, the Bosch-centric chapters are in first-person narrative, which I did not like in the previous book, Lost Light. But the other chapters are, because it does feature at least 2, it features several characters from previous books, whether Bosch was in those books or not. And one of those is an FBI agent. She shows up again in this book. And I'm not real happy with her at the moment, because she did a stupid thing. But overall, I am liking the book. I'm just disappointed with Connolly's choice to change the narrative to first person for Bosch. It seemed to me, it feels like his personality changed with the narrative change. So it's still good, but it's not as, there was more of a mystique about him in the previous books. So this one brings up, also the villain in this book, there's a returning villain that was from a previous book of Connolly's called The Poet. And Bosch was not really a big part of that, but the FBI agent in this book was a big part of The Poet. So, of that book, The Poet. So, I'm going to continue. I'm not sure where I am in the Michael Connolly universe on all his books. I'm trying to go through I'm trying to read his books in publication order. So, so far, I haven't, it has not jumped the shark. So this is a series I can continue with. And when I finish The Narrows, I will be starting The Closers. And I'm not even sure, I haven't even read the description of that. I don't even know if Bosch is in it. I don't, I'm just going in date order, so publication date order. So I will discover that when I finish The Narrows. And how much did I have? I think I've got less than 3 hours left on that listen. So that won't be too long. I might deviate and go to something else and take a break. I'm thinking about using my credit to get In Defense of the Second Amendment by Larry Correia. So I'll have to look into that a little further to see if I want to do that and take a break from Michael Connolly. We'll find out. I'll let you know next time. Also, I'm actually listening to Atomic Habits, but I do have my own hardcover copy now, so that I can reference things a lot easier than I can on an audio or a digital book. But I'm just kind of, going through a review of listening, and I'm still enjoying it. I'm still incorporating things. This has really helped me with my gym habit, going to the gym twice a week. I'm hoping maybe in the new year I can bump that to 3 times a week. And I have, anyway, it's really helping me get more organized in my activities and tasks during the day. And I'm noticing too, because I've, listened to it or read it, I think 5 or 6 times now, that things will just occur to me. The spaced repetition is helping. It'll be like when something comes along, I'll think, okay, so like even in the gym, when I work on the machines, I have to do so many sets and reps and all that. And then in between sets, I usually bring a book with me and I'll read a page of the book. And so that's my, kind of my reward. I do the less enjoyable activity and then reward myself with a more enjoyable activity. So things like that, I set goals and reward myself for them. So that's good. And I definitely recommend this book. It's actually more a book about deliberate practice and encased in the structure of establishing habits. But it's really about deliberate practice, which I have incorporated in my life for at least 3.5 years now. And I've really benefited from that. I think I've mentioned before, I have lost 305 pounds in the last 3.5 years. And so it has completely changed my life in very beneficial ways. When I was talking to the doctor I saw today, she's going to do one more round of lab work, and then hopefully I will be released from that practice, as I have been from 4 other medical practices. I don't have those conditions anymore, and so I don't have to see those doctors anymore. So I'm hoping that's going to happen. So that's the kind of benefits you can get from establishing a deliberate practice in your life and pursuing goals in a very systematic fashion. And so I love it. So great book, Atomic Habits. All right, so those are all the ones I'm currently reading. And and I've already talked about the Crimson Campaign, which is the next in the Powder Mage trilogy, and the Closers, which is the next, Michael Connolly, the next Michael Connolly book. And I also want to start the Saxon series by Bernard Cornwell. And that's a 13-book series. Thankfully, my library has all 13. And the first book in the series is The Last Kingdom. I borrowed the DVDs from the library and watched all 5 seasons of The Last Kingdom TV series. Loved it. And so now I want to read the books. I learned that the last 3 seasons did not stick to the books like the first 2 seasons did. And so that's why I definitely want to read the series to see what the source material actually has in it. And especially since I guess they robbed me of the plot lines in the later books. So The Last Kingdom is on my radar, and it's going to be getting into my plans pretty quickly, I hope. Probably definitely when I finish the Powder Mage trilogy. Also, I was using this for my nonfiction, Undoing Drugs for my nonfiction November. But since I'm dropping that one, I have plans to read for Debbie December, which is books by Debbie Maycomer. I'm planning on Knit Together, which is a nonfiction book by Debbie Maycomer. Discover God's Pattern for Your Life. And so I'm kind of looking forward to reading some nonfiction from Debbie. So that should be interesting. So I may just start this early, and since I'm not going to be reading, but this would also fit for nonfiction November. So I think I'll go ahead and start this early, and then see how I like it. It's probably going to be a step up from Undoing Drugs, because I did not like that one. Another book I checked out of the library and was hoping to get to is Wish You Were Here by Rita Mae Brown and Sneaky Pie Brown. And the way this caught my attention was I was looking in the new books section at the library, and I think it's the most recent book in this series, the Mrs. Murphy series, and Mrs. Murphy is a cat who helps solve her owner solve mysteries. I think the owner, the main character in this I think she's a librarian or something. I can't remember now. Here's the back cover of the authors of the series, Rita Mae and Sneaky Pie Brown. I just thought that was hilarious that she writes these books with her cat. So I had to check that out. But I always want to start a series with the first book. So I found it on the shelf and checked it out. Then I subsequently, in reorganizing my Goodreads shelves, I found out that I have this book and many of the others in the series on Audible. I collected them, so they're in my Audible library. So I'll be turning this back into the library, and I'll be listening to this book when I finish Evelina, probably. So that's another one that's coming up. And that's it for books, I think. I think I covered all the books I was going to talk about, which is good because I'm less than a half hour right now. But I'm going to talk about the DVDs, which are basically at least a couple, some of them are books adjacent. The source material is books. So the first one, this is the good news. I love this movie, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. I thought it was great. It was the costuming was great. Just the whole idea is so ridiculous that it ends up being interesting, and I don't know. It might be kind of tongue in cheek, but they were pretty faithful to Jane Austen's book, Pride and Prejudice, in the characterizations of people. Probably one of the more extreme, but then at the on the other hand, it's like it's not that extreme for her personality. But what is it, Lady Elizabeth de Bourgh or whatever her name is? She was I can't remember the actress's name. She plays the queen on Game of Thrones, one of the queens on Game of Thrones. Headley or Hetty is her last name, I think. Anyway, she was excellent in that role, and brought a whole new layer to that character. I loved it. And they usually call, in the movie, they call Lizzie Liz. That's her, and this is Mr. Darcy. And there's a whole different twist to the Darcy Wickham conflict, and of course the 5 Bennet daughters have a whole different way of life than in the original novel. And there actually is a book called Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. So this movie was based on both Pride and Prejudice and the Pride and Prejudice and Zombies book. So I'm not interested enough to read the book Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, because I probably from watching the movie, I probably know all of the surprises and twists and turns, and so I'm satisfied with watching the movie, and I've read Pride and Prejudice multiple times. So it was a nice little romp. And if anybody enjoys heaving bosoms, this is the movie for you. that was rather prevalent, I thought, in the in the footage. But yeah, it was a fun watch, so I enjoyed that one. And then I also checked out the Godfather 3-movie collection. So it's got Godfather 1, 2, and 3. I have watched 1 and 2. I don't remember watching these when they came out, when these movies came out. I don't remember, I do remember scenes, so maybe somebody was watching it and I walked through the room at the time, or maybe I saw previews or clips somewhere. So it was pretty much brand new to me. And they're depressing. They're brutal, and they're kind of, like, I was talking to my daughter and son-in-law about it, that it's kind of very sloppy and wasteful brutality. I would think assassinations, I know in some cases they want to leave a message with the assassinations or whatever. And so maybe there's a reason for the sloppiness and wastefulness. I don't know, but here I am analyzing in a financial and just practical way of these horrible crimes. It's like, why am I even analyzing this? And it was so depressing by the end of the second movie. I don't even know if I'm gonna try to watch the third movie. I have to take them back tomorrow. And tonight, I'm thinking I'm going to watch something else instead. And I don't know if I'll ever go back to it. But, this is, The Godfather was a book. I've never read the book, and I'm not inclined to read the book after watching the movie, the first two movies. And but the most interesting thing about it, actually, was seeing all the actors when they were so much younger. And that was kind of cool. Diane Keaton didn't even really look like Diane Keaton in the first movie to me. I had to keep reminding myself, that's Diane Keaton. Same with Al Pacino. So, And there was some, especially in number 1 here, there was some overacting going on that I wasn't, I was not favorably impressed with that. So, anyway, so that's The Godfather. And, I started watching, after I finished Godfather 2, I started watching The Dark Knight. And I feel like I've seen parts of this movie as well. And it may be that I watched the whole movie and I can only remember certain parts. I do remember Michael Caine and Christian Bale and in their roles. And I really like Michael. I always like Michael Caine, I think, in everything he's ever done. And so that was nice. But I'm not very far into the movie. I think it's a long one too. You know, these Godfather ones were long. I thought they were long. This one's long. So in the future, when I check out DVDs from the library, I probably, I was trying to get one for, every night for 7 nights. And that's when the movies are this long, I can't do it. So I'm thinking maybe 3, check out 3 a week, or 4 at the most, and see if I can get through that many in a week. But these are going back tomorrow, so I think I would rather try to finish The Dark Knight than to try to watch Godfather 3. So that's going to be my agenda. So far, I'm liking it. I can't remember his name. The sad story. The guy who plays the Joker. I can't read that small print. But, he sadly died young, and but he's pretty good in that role so far. I don't think I've even made it through the first hour of this movie, and I think it's almost 2 or maybe more than 2. So we'll see how I like it at the end. But yeah, so that's my BookTube this time, and it's not short. I thought it would be a lot shorter because it feels like but maybe I should just do it more often with fewer things to talk about and get shorter videos out of it. We'll see how it goes. I kind of have to, go on camera when I have the time available, so it can be delayed sometimes. So we'll see how it goes in the future. But so far, I'm enjoying The Wager. Where did I put that? Oh, yeah. So this is my real thrill lately in the reading world. So I'm going to keep reading this one. This is going to have my primary attention. So hopefully I will be back by the time I finish that. And so I hope you're reading something that you're enjoying. And if not, say next and go on to the next book. Don't waste your time with books that are not satisfying for you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.